my personal brand kept growing and growing and growing. And I just knew like at some point, right, like I wanted to take a shot of doing this. But it was just a lot of sacrifice with my personal time. And that's really what it comes down to. And so it was awesome that I was able to achieve like literally what my dream job was. But you know, I just wanted to take this chance on doing my own thing and see like what I could do with it. And so I was just always interested in, I knew at some point I wanted to do my own thing. And also I think it's just a cool like thing for a community to like really build something that people can get behind. And this is still something I'm exploring and figuring out as I go what all it's going to turn into.
How would you prioritize your social media platform?
Number one for me is
Welcome back to another talk on the creative outlet. Today we have JHawk on the pod, aka Johnny Hochstetler. If you've been around my community or Jay's community, you know that this talk is a long time coming and they've been getting on me to get this one out. If you don't know who JHawk is, he is a full-time content creator, kind of in the tech and lifestyle realm of content, as well as an entrepreneur with his brand Lab Culture, which is a tech and lifestyle brand he just started late 2024. This was a really good talk. We get to talk a little bit about his backstory, about the companies he used to work with before he became a full-time content creator, what made him make that jump to full-time content creation, what it's like building Lab Culture alongside being a full-time creator, and also we talk a lot about the brands that he has gotten to work with over these last couple of years, just to name a few: Chevy, Lego, Samsung. It's pretty insane how many people he's worked with. When it comes to content creation in general, I always felt like my content was the most similar to Jay's. So to be able to call him one of my best friends in the space and be able to have him on the pod means the world to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this talk as much as I did. Let's hop into it. Welcome back, and we are here with a good friend of mine. JHawk is in the building. How we doing, bro?
Yeah, dude. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, you have been, I feel like, the busiest person in the world lately with just life in general.
Dude, it's funny because I feel like people say that about me, which I guess I am pretty busy. But yeah, like, I don't know. There's just always a lot going on. There's always something else to work on. So,
dude, yeah. So it's, I mean, it only felt right to wear Lab Culture during this. But I'm honestly, I want to know, as far as just, you know, about your history in a sense of just content in general, because I know obviously you're a full-time content creator now, starting your own is it apparel brand? How would you word, or like
Lab Culture, I would say, is a tech lifestyle brand.
Okay. Yeah, so
apparel and lifestyle.
So building that while being a full-time content creator, I'm curious how, one, you even got in like to the space, because I do know a little bit of your backstory in a sense of where you've worked and kind of, you know, how you've learned, but just curious how you got into the space, what made you fall in love with it to an extent, to be able to take it as a career, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. Just to go back, you know, a little bit, I very first started out doing content with just friends and homies in high school. We were just shooting videos, doing stupid stuff like jackass related, kind of like that type of videos way back in the day. My first video camera was a flip cam, if you remember those. Kind of dates me a bit, but yeah, I was just doing video stuff for fun, just editing these like crappy videos like in iMovie, like way back in the day. I wasn't really into the normal type of stuff in the school or like in school days, so I took a couple like art classes. I kind of fell in love with like Photoshop and graphic design things, so I ended up going to college at the Art Institute in Columbus, where I'm from, Columbus, Ohio. I originally went for graphic design. I was doing, I basically was just a full-time graphic designer at the time, but I was just doing video and kind of photo stuff for fun. So I went to school for graphic design, and then during freshman year, I realized, oh wait, I can actually do the video and photo stuff. I can make that my career, not the graphic design things. So I just kind of went down that rabbit hole, and then over the next, or I guess, you know, looking back now, the past 10 years, I worked within like 3 different companies, like within the fashion space, the fitness world, the supplement health and wellness world, and just kind of, I guess, worked my way up through different careers like that in the professional field. And then over the past 5 years, kind of on top of that, I started doing personal content just because I was inspired by a lot of online creators at the time. And I was fulfilled with my professional work, but it wasn't fulfilling to me in a creative sense. So I started doing personal content just as kind of like a creative outlet. That was unintentional, but yeah, I just started doing like my own personal content just because I wanted to make videos about stuff I was passionate about, right? And it kind of like revived me a bit because, you know, when you're working a job at the time, like way back, like 2019, I was doing some great things and like I was able to like travel the world and shoot with NBA players and like do some really big photo shoots, but it just wasn't fulfilling to me because I wasn't shooting stuff that I personally cared about. So I went down kind of like the personal content journey, and I was kind of doing double duty of like working a full-time job or jobs and then also working on personal content. And then, about 6 months ago, I took the leap of faith and left my full-time job to pursue content creation full-time so I could put 100% into this. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, dude, you're killing it. I remember like because I'm trying to remember when we like met officially. I think it was TwitchCon 2022.
Yeah,
and you were very much in your job that you were working, but you were. I would say that's kind of roughly when, and I could be wrong on the timeline. You really blew up in a sense of your personal content, like took a big leap right around that time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I feel like when everyone starts doing like personal content, right, it usually takes a while to get some traction. And so it was just like a few years of doing it, you know, without seeing a ton of return, but it was super fulfilling. So it kind of like made me keep going. And also like, I really like, when I have my eyes set on something, like I really make it come to life. And so I think I just was just kind of grinding for a few years. And then, things just starting to click. Which I think is kind of the case for anyone. Like, I don't think there's really that much luck involved. I think it's really just, you know, you prepare yourself for these moments. And if everything's kind of all the stars align at the right time, if you're prepared for it, like things just kind of click and work out the right way. So
you can essentially make it happen.
Yeah. So, I would say, I guess around 2022, 2023, I feel like I just kind of found my groove with like the content I was making. I think the community really started growing at that time. But I think I just loved what I was doing and it was clicking. So it was just kind of like the perfect storm.
Yeah. And I feel like as far as even people we've had on, but also like just creators, I would say in this realm, you're in a sense very, I was like almost a very like personal brand different. You're not reliant in a sense on a specific, you know, whether it's video game or, you know, new tech coming out, as far as like, you know, getting down to like specifics of it. You're very much have branded yourself, you know, JHawk, Johnny Hochstetler, like you've really incorporated yourself into your personal brand. And I think that's what a lot of people don't do well. Yeah. And I'm really curious how, like, was it just over time you started to develop that, or was that like I really want to do this from the beginning?
No, it was definitely a very thought out decision very early on. And I think, you know, for me, I've seen so many different creators, right? Like in any niche that are so hardcore on one very specific niche. Yeah. And I think you can get a lot of growth out of that quickly. But then the issue with that is what if, that niche goes away? What if you get bored with it? What if you want to try something else? What if you want to pivot your content? Yeah. And all of a sudden you're just completely stuck within this box. Like I know Rob was talking about like a creator makes content only around Call of Duty content, and then guess what? Call of Duty sucks, or what if Call of Duty goes away, or whatever. Same with like kind of like my field. Like let's say if all I did was, I don't know, Apple iPhone reviews, I'm sure a lot of people would get to know me as like, that's what I do. But guess what? If I wanted to start doing something else or post a video about something else, the audience would probably be like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And so I always tried to kind of mirror myself with some other creators that, you know, inspired me a lot. like with their come up, where it's just like I try to make myself more the niche than actually putting myself in a specific niche.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot harder to do and probably a lot slower growth. But I think with that slower growth comes a stronger community.
100%.
And so that was kind of like my decision early on. There's like a channel that I loved, especially like back then. There's a channel called Becky and Chris, and they do like a lot of like camera stuff, and then they would do home renovations. They had a helicopter. So it's just like they had all these like kind of like 4 or 5 different things that lived under their umbrella of Becky and Chris. And I remember thinking about them. I was just like, that's, you know, it makes you care about the creator a lot more because you know their other interests and things they're into. And so I've always just tried to like think about myself and think about like what my main buckets are for what is the JHawk umbrella? What are those main buckets underneath that? And then everything I do kind of falls in line into those. Like this past week, I posted a video about, news on the latest iPhone, but then I also did an unboxing for a pair of sneakers. So it's like, how do those two things make any sense next to each other? They really don't, but they do like within my umbrella. Yeah. So like, that's how I look at my content.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's even starting, this podcast and a lot of stuff. I'm very much hitting YouTube hard this year.
Yeah.
Actually doing it in that sense. But like that is a, play I've taken out of your playbook for sure, because I'm not like, I have my 3 pillars of content is literally going to be value-based podcast and BTS.
Yep.
And you've been doing a lot more BTS lately of like, obviously, starting your own brand and, doing all that. And I remember when I first kind of not found you, but like, we had talked on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
I had backlogged your entire YouTube like video posting. So I was back like 2021 watching old JHawk videos, and I'm like, and I look
terrible
now,
videos, yeah.
and I look now, and I'm like, it's not even like that they were bad. They're probably bad to your standards. But I'm like, these are quality videos.
Yeah.
But they're so different from what you're doing right now. Like when did you decide to in a sense of like make that change of doing like BTS stuff compared to like, I would say like sit down talking at the desk, like as far as consistently?
I mean, it's kind of tough. Like, I think just like as I started doing more and more content, right, I really wanted to figure out like what I enjoyed more of, which I've always been a huge fan of like behind the scenes. And I think like building things has always been an interest of mine. Just like whether it be brands or products or whatever. And so I think even just myself, I just wanted to figure out like what type of content I enjoyed consuming and then also making. And even like these days, which it's pretty common now, but like even, like one of these last YouTube videos I did was on the Osmo Pocket 3. And instead of doing just like a sit down video at my desk being like, here's my review of it or 5 top features or whatever, I decided to just like vlog my entire week on it and kind of review it within it. And that way it's kind of just like a more genuine review and also a lot more enjoyable for me to do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then also I can talk about whatever I want within that. Yeah. So I think just as I did more and more YouTube videos, which I think is crazy. I think I've put out over 200 long form YouTube videos, which is kind of insane. Actually, my last one I filmed is 235. And so, I think just within that, there's a lot of trial and error and seeing what I enjoy making, what sticks with the audience, what sticks with me to, create consistently. But I think as it kind of keeps evolving, I really just want to kind of tell my story, and then within that, I'm talking about just everything I'm reviewing or using or whatever kind of within that.
Yeah, because like new tech is always coming out. It's always new things are always coming, and it's like you definitely like even me like I don't want to do like sit down like, stuff at all. I'm like for me it's boring. Yeah. I stumble over my words, but if I'm out using it, it's like everything comes more natural than just sitting at your office.
Yeah, and I think there's a balance within there too. Like I think even myself, like one of these next videos right now that's coming out will be a sit down video. And so I'm still gonna like mix that stuff in, but I think it's just like again, if you look at, I think about like that, the umbrella and what's under that. For me, like you look at my YouTube, like the vlog style content is like one of the buckets. Another bucket's like the sit down stuff, maybe the more review style things. So just trying to kind of at least like figure out like what my specific things are, and then kind of always like tracking towards like that North Star of like what is under that.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people that listen and watch this are content creators, like, you know, in a sense, like myself, that do work a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That are doing this on the side. They're doing this in the late night hours. You were doing that for years.
Yeah.
What was the turning point to finally make that leap into like full time?
Sure. Well, I think a big thing for me is I think I started personal content like, I think it was in 2019, but it wasn't like full on. I was just like starting to dabble with it. And at the time I was working for a large fashion brand. And at the time, right, like I was, you know, making over 6 figures a year. I had the most secure job on earth. We were flying all over the country, shooting with NBA players, like felt like the most secure, like great job at the time. And then obviously like 2020 hit, the whole world changed. And then like I go from that to literally like getting a phone call, and the next week I'm collecting like unemployment. And so it was pretty like insane that I feel like I could like have this super secure situation, and then like overnight, like they tell you like actually like you are like, you know, you're not needed right now. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And so that kind of gave me a chance where I think like, you know, when quarantine happened, everyone kind of went two ways. They either just like partied and like did nothing and played Call of Duty all day, or they really like people really dove into like maybe like a hobby or like a side hustle. So I took that as a chance of like me being able to see what being a full-time creator would feel like, you know? So I was just, it was like 3 or 4 months of taking this unemployment check, and I was just like, I grinded YouTube, like even Rob, me and him were trying to both get monetized on YouTube at the time. And like, that was like kind of like my chance to know what that felt like. And I like absolutely loved it. And so I knew at some point, like that was like kind of like my goal. So I ended up like getting brought back to work a few months later at that job. And then I was just kind of doing like the double duty thing again, like working on personal content, because at that point I started seeing a little bit of traction, which it was so small at that time, but I was like, this is kind of clicking.
It's there.
Yeah. Like I know what this could be. And I was like, especially when I was at that job, I was like, this could go away overnight. So like, I don't want to rely on someone else's paycheck ever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I worked there. I then left and got like my dream job at Ghost, which was like an amazing experience. And I think really just, you know, like doing the double duty thing for, I don't know, it's like 3 or 4 years, was really, really tough, but it was just a lot of sacrifice with my personal time. And that's really what it comes down to. And with that entire experience, I think, you know, my personal brand kept growing and growing and growing. And I just knew like at some point, right, like I wanted to take a shot of doing this.
Yeah.
And I think I would be really disappointed if I never did. And so it was awesome that I was able to achieve like literally what my dream job was. But, you know, I just wanted to take this chance on doing my own thing and see like what I could do with it. So that was pretty much what the decision was. So yeah, that was like the end of summer last year. So yeah, it's been like 6-7 months. Yeah, it's crazy. So
was there like a in a sense maybe like a financial number that you had to like in a sense have? You don't have to get like specific with it, but like what were there like in a sense parameters of like, hey, I need to make sure I have this, so I can be set for X amount of time to make that full-time jump?
Not really, to be honest, for me at least. I mean, that's probably like a very smart idea.
Yeah.
But for me, more it was just like once I was able to see like, you know, an Instagram reel was more than a paycheck for my job. I was just like, okay, like this, there could really be something here, you know? And it's like, if I'm able to put, you know, 20% of my time into this and it's this successful, like what's possible if I'm able to put 100% of my time into it? So there wasn't like I want to get my savings to X amount or whatever. It was more just like I felt this traction. And obviously it was a hard decision and like a big jump to do that. But I was just like, dude, like, I don't know. Like I'd bet on myself every day of the week. So I just like back against the wall, like I have to make it happen. So yeah.
I mean, that's just like overall confidence though too.
Yeah, and I think I only have that confidence because I was put in so many reps for so long, you know, and it's like, again, like if to me, I was pretty successful at it and more successful than some people that were doing it full time. With that little of time and effort I was being able to put into it, just because it was like weekends or weeknights or whatever, I was like, man, if I have every day of the week to work on this stuff, like what could the potential be, you know?
What was the like the schedule shift? Because I know that's crazy, because obviously it's your own hours. You have all the time in the world, and I know a lot of people can get, in a sense, stagnant when it comes to that.
Yeah.
What was that shift like?
Dude, it was definitely pretty pretty drastic change, you know. Like I went from like 3 years, like my last year at Express and then even like at Ghost, I think there was like 3 years in a row where I was averaging like 50 or 60 flights a year. And so I was just like, I was traveling nonstop. I feel like I was never home. And I just wasn't able to hang out with, you know, girlfriend, family, friends as much as like I should have been. So it was just like, I feel like I was just grinding for a few years in just like this insane like mental state, which I think I did it pretty well. Looking back at it, I don't really know how I was able to do it, to be honest. But I think I just like was so set on what the future could be, you know, and I really loved everything I was doing. And so I think within that, you know, it just became a point where, fuck, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
What was it?
You're chilling. You're literally just talking about
the schedule change.
Schedule change.
And so, yeah, I think with that, you know, it was just like I was just busy and working on stuff all the time. Yeah. And so then overnight, all of a sudden, just waking up and being able to like kind of dictate my own schedule was pretty drastic. But I think luckily, since I was within different companies and professional settings for so many years, I'm pretty good with structure. And even like at, I guess my last 2 jobs, you know, I managed people, so I was used to like having to structure a team, not even just myself. Yeah. And so I think I was able to take a lot of my structure from my past experiences and put that within my own piece too. So it's a pretty big change, but also it's just nice to be able to kind of figure out like what my ideal day would look like and like what I'm able to do, or like if things happen and I need to take the dog to the vet, like have a more flexible schedule, or like just be able to spend time with loved ones or friends more. But yeah, it was a pretty big change, but it's been awesome.
I was like, I'm sure it helps the mental too, especially.
It does help the mental, but at the same time now, like with my own content or even like the lab culture stuff, it's almost harder because there isn't set hours for it. So it's like, it's almost even more challenging to like, when can you turn it off, you know? Yeah. And also like now I 100% rely on myself. So like if I take an evening off, like there is a downside to that, you know? And so there is a pressure with that.
Yeah. You mentioned lab culture. Now, what that started 2023 is when you said roughly when you launched it. What, obviously the name is awesome. I was Thanks, you've been saying that for long before that. But like, how did that even come about, in a sense of like, because you were still working full time, and you still wanted, and you were like building your own personal brand, and what made you start it pretty much?
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, 2023 is the year basically I thought of it, so it's kind of like when it was like birthed, in my opinion. We didn't like officially launch anything till after I left my job, and like whatever that was, I think it was August of 24 is our first launch. But for me, you know, like I've always been a big fan of people within, I guess, the content space that kind of document this journey of building their own thing. Yeah. You know, like a few people that first come to mind is like Christian Guzman, Charlie Coker, Max Tooney, and like a lot of people that were associated with Ghost or within that fitness world. And that was a big piece of why I wanted to work at Ghost originally, you know, with Dan and Ryan too, because it's just like, I really loved watching people just kind of like build something. And especially those content creators I mentioned, like they build up their own platforms and then created something off of that. And I think that's a really cool thing to not only tell that story, but also like the idea of building something that can outlive you, and not necessarily like lifespan, but just like outliving like how long you're doing content for. And also I think it's just a cool like thing for a community to like really build something that people can get behind.
Yeah.
And so I was just always interested in, I knew at some point I wanted to do my own thing. And this is still something I'm exploring and figuring out as I go what all it's going to turn into. But yeah, it was just kind of something where I knew I wanted to build something more of like a community. Obviously like I'm very into like the sneaker and streetwear world, and like I love, you know, certain pieces of fashion and just stuff within that niche. And so one, I just wanted to make stuff that like I enjoy using or wearing, and then also just being able to, I guess, you know, build something that you can see within the community too. So yeah, it was just something where I figured I wanted to build something bigger than myself. And yeah,
I feel like it's so much more like, because I think a lot of, especially like in like the gaming world, a lot of people have like their own merch line and you know, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, lab culture is so much more brandable.
Yeah.
In a sense of like, I don't think many people, I mean, they may, but I don't think, definitely not as many people would be wearing a shirt or a hat that says JHawk on it.
For sure.
Versus like lab culture.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's like a few routes you can go, and I don't think there's anything wrong with either. Like if we got the sales from Nick Merck's last merch pre-order, you know, I think it was like in the millions. And so, you know, like obviously that can be a pretty good route too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, you know, I think that's really only possible when you're pretty large, or like it could still be successful at a lower level too, but you're probably just not moving that much stuff. But to me, like, yeah, it's more just like I wanted to, instead of having like merch or something, it's more like something that anyone could think is cool. Like last night at that bar we were at, 3 different people asked about the apparel that I was wearing, and I think all our friends were wearing, you know, and like that's like, if it was like Johnny Hochstetler on it, like that doesn't sound as cool as like something where people are like, oh, like what does that mean, or like what is that, you know? And so yeah, you know, I think it's just like trying to build something bigger than just myself, and that's the route I chose to go down. And I think it was for sure the right decision with what I want to do.
I feel like out of our entire group, I really like, as my content very much relates to you more than pretty much anybody.
Sure.
What have you noticed in the last, like, since, I would say probably like since you've gone full time, but also since you even started Lab Culture, what have you noticed, like your content, like the differences of like in a sense of growth, but also just how you even approach it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, for me, not a whole lot has changed, honestly. It's just more, I guess, being able to spend a little bit more time on certain things versus what I was able to do before, and just experiment more. But also, I think I'm in a point right now where I think things are good, but also like I just have like insane high standards. So I feel like I still have a long ways to go with what I want to do. But for me right now, I feel like my biggest focus over the past little while is really just kind of figuring out like what my personal cadence is with content, because I think a lot of creators can make videos and photos or whatever, and then like if it doesn't perform well, they get disappointed, they stop doing it, whatever. For me, I'm more focused on like, okay, I want to get out 4 posts a week, maybe 3 or videos, maybe 1 is a photo dump, and then like whatever it is, like maybe it's a YouTube video, right? And I don't know exactly what that is, and that's something still I'm trying to exactly nail down. But to me, it's a lot easier where, you know, I know this week I'm doing these 3 pieces of content and I'm tracking towards that, instead of being like, okay, you wake up, what am I making today? Okay, this, film, edit, record it, whatever. And then you see how it performs, and then the next day you're like, okay, fuck, like, do I want to do something like this again, or like what, you know? And so I just try to look at it. I mean, I treat my content creation very much like a job. And like, I think a lot of people don't look at their content like a business, which I think is a really big mistake. And so I try to just do everything very calculated. I mean, I do it to like probably too much of a obsessive amount, but like I really care about what I make and what I put out and how it all aligns and how it lives together. And I think, you know, it takes like a certain type of crazy to make this stuff successful. And that's just something I'm always trying to kind of improve on. But yeah, going back to your question, I think really for me right now, it's more like, I wouldn't say I'm making anything different. I think I've been able to put my output a little bit more consistent, be able to spend time a little bit more on each things that I want to, but also leave some room to explore and experiment a little bit more too.
Yeah. You talking about how calculated you are when you, like, whether it's the start of a new year or just anything, are you like a crazy like set goals person in a sense of like numbers, or is it like I want to get X amount of posts out in like this year or something like that?
I think for me, I think I do a little bit of both. I think the number thing is tricky, and I don't think it's great because then if you don't hit it, it can be pretty like disheartening. I think also having a certain number in mind is good because like then it kind of like puts a fire under you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to focus more on like the output goals versus like the number goals.
Because
you
can control those in a sense.
For sure. Like if I'm like, instead of being like, I don't know, I want to hit 200,000 subscribers this year, I'd rather say like, okay, I want to put out whatever that is, 52 YouTube videos this year, you know, which I'm not saying those are my numbers, but like just an example, like I would rather track towards that and then see what the benefits are from it. But I think you got to always kind of like take a step back and analyze stuff and figure out like what type of goals are good and what's not working. Because also, I don't know, maybe you make a goal and you're like, I'm going to post every day for a month. And you do, and you realize now you're burnt out and it wasn't worth it and all this stuff. And you're just like, well, like that was my goal. So was that good that I hit it? And it's like, well, maybe not, you know? So yeah, I think just trying to figure it out.
No, I think it's funny that you mentioned posting every day for a month because I did that in 2023. And I was like, you know, just trying to honestly just try to trigger, in a sense, the Instagram algorithm of like, you know, and that was right when I moved into my own place. So I didn't have anything to worry about but like myself. And I got done with it. I ended up going past the month. I think I went to like 44 days in a row or something. And like, I got like, in my opinion, like no progress in the sense of like numbers wise. And then I started taking a break and in a sense and doing, you know, I think I did like 4 videos a week. And that's the one that actually blew up. And I'm like, what the point? Like I understood a lot in that month of like, okay, this definitely doesn't do well. This does do well. But it was like, it was so unfulfilling by the time I actually finished it.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a balance in there somewhere too. Because I think I've also like, you know, like I think it was maybe like last month or something where I feel like I put out a ton of pieces of content, stuff I was really proud of, stuff that I think did good, right? But then I think like my net followers for the month was like, I lost like 50. And it's like, and you're just like, all right, like, so one, like, that doesn't necessarily mean bad, right? It just means like whatever, but also like, okay, do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to like figure out a different route? Do I want to post more? Do I want to post less? Do I want to spend more time on stuff? You know, and so I think that's the important part where it's just like, there's always going to be ebbs and flows. You're going to have hot months, low months. Sometimes it's related to what you're putting out. Sometimes other things are out of your control too. So it's just kind of always reanalyzing and seeing what's working.
Do you make different kinds of content for different platforms specifically? When it comes to your stuff, not necessarily brand deals, right? But like your personal.
Not always, no. For the most part, no, I don't. I guess the only thing I do now is obviously like photo posts. I pretty much just do on Instagram. I used to put them on TikTok too. They just did so terribly. I just really don't anymore. But yeah, for the most part, especially now since all platforms allow 3-minute verticals, for the most part, all my stuff goes everywhere.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't really switch up anything too much. I experiment a little bit more on TikTok versus like Instagram, I guess, just because I'm okay with things not like popping off over there.
Yeah.
So I would say TikTok's probably the most experimental I get, just because I don't care how things go.
Which I know we've talked about it slightly in the past, but I feel like you said that you're going to focus a little bit more on TikTok last year.
Yeah.
So like compared to Instagram, which I think that's your highest platform as far as following goes. But like, how was that, like, in a sense of like really focusing in on that?
I think it's been pretty successful. I also just like personally, like a personal goal was a number goal. I just want like over 100K on all platforms. I just think that'd be a cool thing, and then also helps with brand deals and other things too. But I think I think TikTok does have a certain power of like, like I think there is a community piece of TikTok that's really hard to unlock. Yeah. But I think if you do get like this weird, vulnerable behind the scenes stuff that I've seen some people be able to like achieve, you get a really strong community over there. But like Instagram is just different. Like Instagram, to me, at least how I treat it, is like more sexy, polished, whatever. TikTok, like I'd be okay putting out like something more low effort. So, I'm always just trying to kind of explore and experiment a little bit more. But I think TikTok, to me, I think is more forgiving of trying new things.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I've liked the focus on TikTok. But I think just moving forward, I just want to figure out, I guess, like all platforms, what I want to be doing.
Yeah. You're one of the few people, well, not few people, but few people that have had success on YouTube when it comes to long form and short form. Because a lot of people, like, especially when they first launched, YouTube was like, or people were like starting shorts channels, and like they didn't want to mix it, and YouTube didn't do a good job with their
they did a terrible
UI
job.
of like combining them.
Yeah.
So like you're doing both, and you're having a lot of success with it, at least from an outside perspective.
Sure.
So like, what was your decision in a sense of like to not do short form, if that is like your own short form channel?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like maybe I should, because like from the outside in, like, I mean, I've talked to Rob more about this than anyone. I've tried every fucking thing under the sun to make YouTube Shorts work for me, and they just really don't. For some reason, video will do 1 million on all other platforms, but then get 25 views on YouTube Shorts. So maybe I should just make a Shorts channel and scrap everything, to be honest. But also, I think, I don't know. There's a lot of theories there, but I think for me, not even necessarily just looking at YouTube, but I think overall, right, I put a lot of focus on long form and short form.
Yeah.
And I think going back to, just like other creators and stuff, I think the creators that truly I think are at the top of the game are able to be successful at both. Like a good friend of mine, Lo, is like, he's one of the people I look at too, because like he has such a strong following with long form and short form stuff.
He's insane.
And I love both of his things, and so I think we all know creators who like predominantly only do long form and they still hate short form and don't want it to be successful. And it's like, brother, like
we're well past
get
that.
with the days. But you also know people that only do short form and like either they're too afraid to kind of step into long form world, or I don't know, they're just a hesitation there for some reason, which I think is understandable because like they are pretty different. But I think if you, as a creator, are able to kind of unlock both, it's like, that's like where the magic is, not only from like a brand deal standpoint, but also just from a community aspect. You're just really able to do a lot of cool stuff. So, and you really have people like buy in, I think.
Yeah. You talk about brand deals a lot, and you've worked with some crazy companies, especially lately. Like you did the craziest one, and it wasn't even within, like it is, but it's not within your niche. You did a deal with Chevy on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is even I would say the process of choosing, but also even just getting brand deals like that. Obviously, you have a big following, so that makes it definitely easier.
Yeah.
But like, what does that look like as far as you filtering out what you want to do and don't want to do?
I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing. Like I'm kind of like talking about like how calculated I try to be. I'm even more so if I'm like doing brand deals, just because I'm not going to associate myself with anything that I genuinely wouldn't use, because I think that's where you can really lose your community very quickly. And so I've turned down some pretty huge things just because it's stupid. But for the most part, like a lot of it's outreach to me and like, managers that I've worked with and stuff. And so we'll get in emails, we'll review it, see if it makes sense, and just kind of go from there. Like this morning I turned down something that was like for like this robot assistant. It's like a ball thing that has like you can put stuff in it and it follows you around, and it's like it might be cool, but they kind of like lowballed me, and I was just like, I wouldn't actually use this.
Yeah.
So like sometimes there's an angle with that where it's like, check out this crazy weird thing, but it just, for all accounts, like it has to make sense. First and foremost, brand.
Yeah.
Is it on brand for me? And then second of all, like, does it make sense for my time and effort, like financially? Because yeah, I'm so paranoid about like just making sure things can live like within my branded world, and not feel like forced or like too much or whatever.
Also, like keeping it timeless in a sense of like, like if something goes bad with that brand, it's like trying to like really filter it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just like figuring out, you know, like where you draw the line too. Cause like I'm at the point now where I'm pretty picky, and 99% of the time I'd never do anything for free at this point, and my rate's like, you know, constantly getting higher. But I think for me too, like there are exceptions in times where, you know, sometimes it makes sense to do something for a cheaper amount or free or a gifted exchange. Just because like it might make sense, or it might be worth it in like the long run, which I try to always kind of look down the road and figure out like what, like plan for the long game. So, yeah, you know, I've been able to work with some pretty cool brands and some stuff I'm really proud of. But yeah, as I keep growing and the more things I do, like the shorter that list gets with like stuff that, you know, like I'm okay making content with, just because I want to be picky, right?
Yeah, you want to make sure, you know, you keep your in a sense image.
For sure.
What's your how would you prioritize your social media platforms in a sense of like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and you know whatever else you're on? Like what is like number one right now?
Number one for me is Instagram for sure. I think 2 would be YouTube probably, and then TikTok is 3rd for me personally. I think also just like, again, living within the professional world of content creation for so long and seeing big brands working with creators and influencers or whatever. I'll tell you right now, I would bet 100% of brands that are looking at brand deals are looking at Instagram first. At least for even just to know someone, right? Because even like this, if you go on the street now, like we're at this like, you know, content related event. If me and you just met for the first time and I want to see like what your content is, or like it's almost like you exchanging, you know, numbers with a friend now, like that's your portfolio, you know? And so, especially, if you're like a freelance creative, it's like your Instagram is like your portfolio, you know? So it's like, to me, I think Instagram is number one. But you know, it's not the case for everyone like that. Like some people have a much larger following on TikTok or YouTube or whatever. But I guarantee you these brands are looking at Instagram first.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
If you're looking at I would say, you know, newer creator or even like experienced creator that it has a lower following, like, I mean, let's just use me for example. Instagram is my biggest. Is it my biggest platform? Yeah, it's my biggest platform. But like, are you telling them to focus on Instagram, or, you know, obviously it's niche based and it's per creator, but like as a general, would you say to focus on Instagram over, because like you hear a lot of people, especially like hyper successful people, say like YouTube is the main, and it definitely has a lot of benefits when it comes to long term. But when it comes to, you know, just starting out and in a sense of like trying to find out who you are as a brand or a creator, would you say Instagram probably is? Or
I think so. I think it just depends how you look at it. I think personally, if you're looking for like brand deal related things, I think Instagram is probably number one. I mean, huge YouTubers are making bank from YouTube too. I mean, huge TikTokers are making ridiculous money too. Like, so I'm not trying to say like these other ones aren't worthwhile. I think just, I'm talking about like, I think where people look first. To me, I think YouTube is number one for community building, which I think is a different type of power. But I think Instagram, and with brands, I think there's the biggest budget for Instagram.
Interesting.
And so I think there's always a special case, and I think TikTok, there's a ton of money within that too. But I think, right, like within the last couple months, everyone on earth thought maybe TikTok was going away. And so I think Instagram is also the most stable, you know, for a lot of perspectives. But, you know, It's just my opinion. But I think YouTube has the highest ceiling for community, and you can do a lot of stuff with that. Yeah. So that's a different type of power. And then, Instagram, I think just like, I think it's the most all-encompassing app to me, and at least like my experience. But, there's always different cases and special scenarios too. Yeah. So, I mean, I've also been on a shoot where, we paid like this TikTok dancing couple. It was like $40,000 for the day. So, like it's, like I'm not saying there's not money in TikTok and these other platforms. I think it's just, if there's $40,000 for TikTok, there's probably $50,000 for Instagram. Yeah. So
that's wild. $40,000. That's crazy.
And they were literally TikTok dancers. So.
No, that's insane. Yeah. I want to shift back to lab culture a little bit. What made you start? Because you had, at the time of recording this, you've had 4 drops now.
Yep.
And then, what made you start in a sense of like going with, starting out with hats? Yeah. That was your first 2, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. What was like the decision in a sense behind that? Obviously, you wear a ton of hats. Yep. So it's like,
I mean, that was pretty much the start of it. Is like really for me, it's just like I always wear hats, and so it was just kind of like a natural integration that was just within my content. And so even before I launched the brand, I was wearing hats in most of my content. I got the LED in my office. And so it was just kind of like marketing this brand that wasn't even officially a brand yet, but it got to be the point where people were asking me like, oh, where can I get that hat? Or what is that hat? Or, whatever. Just kind of building that curiosity. But really for me, it was just as simple as like, okay, I want to start launching some things. A hat, there's only one size of it.
Yeah.
It's relatively like easy. Just kind of get a good gauge on like the temperature of people and if they'd be into buying something. And also just kind of relatively an easy thing. Yeah. So really, I just went with the hats just because like I wore them all the time and it was kind of like an easy first thing. And then just try to like kind of grow more and more like as I go.
When you had the first drop, literally sold out in seconds.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. And then obviously the second drop did almost the same thing, like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What made like you realize, okay, was that like the turning point of like, oh, I can finally expand into like actual like shirts and stuff?
I think so for sure. I think there's a balance, right? Like in all aspects, because not necessarily for me, right? But it could sell out and maybe I only sold 10 hats, but like as I keep growing this, like obviously I'm selling more and more things, having more inventory, all this stuff. So for me, it's really just like trying to figure out like that balance of like, again, like I come from the sneaker world and like drop and like hype beast things. Yeah. And so, my taste and my style is probably going to be a little bit more expensive than some. And also like the way I want to build this brand, it's a little bit more exclusive than just like something for everybody. Yeah. And so really just kind of figuring out that balance as I grow of like, I want there to be a lot for people, but at the same time, I want it to be pretty like exclusive. Yeah. So even like, this most recent drop, I mean, it was like the biggest day I ever did and like a record and all this stuff. And at this point, it's not completely sold out, but there's like literally less than like 6 hoodies. So like it's essentially sold out,
Yeah, it's crazy. That's what it's there.
And so, just trying to kind of evolve this thing, but I got some cool ideas. So
what, as far as moving forward, I think we had a conversation last night where you said, I'm already, planned 3 drops ahead or working on the 3rd drop ahead.
For sure.
What, as far as volume and like time of dropping, what is like what's your thought process of like that?
Again, it's kind of something I'm going to try to kind of keep figuring out as I go. But I think for me, right now, it's just me doing this, right? Or at least for the most part. But it's like, I could do a drop every 2 weeks if I wanted to, but it would become my full-time job. And so like, I want this to be an extension of me and something that keeps growing, but I don't want it to be my full attention right now. Yeah. And so it's just kind of like still something where I don't have an exact number yet, but I think like, I don't know, every 4 to 8 weeks somewhere in there would be great for a drop. But also it's just a learning process, like as I'm doing things overseas or doing different types of drops and products in the future, things just take a long time. So that's why I don't want to commit to anything yet, just because I don't like committing to things that I don't know for sure.
Yeah, and you can't control the variables for that.
Yeah, and so at least for now, I just want to stay relevant and keep like kind of building the community and the hype around it. But also, I don't want to myself only post about it. Yeah. So, just kind of finding that balance.
As far as because you mentioned earlier about using your personal content as a creative outlet from your job and whatnot now, and that is now your full-time job, and obviously building lab culture and all that. Mm-hmm. What is your creative outlet now? Like, what do you do to if you're to turn your mind off of everything?
Yeah, that's a good question, dude. The lab culture stuff for me is kind of like a new creative outlet, because it's like just stuff I'm like really passionate about and things I care about. And like, I'm only similar to how I talked about brand deals, where I'm only going to work with brands with stuff that like I'm actually going to use. Like lab culture, I'm only going to make stuff like I actually like really love and like I wear or use or whatever. And so for me, it's kind of just like a whole new endeavor, but it's also, dude, it's like, it's so much work. I don't think most people realize how much work it takes for what I'm doing. Yeah. Which I guess is good, but also I think, there's a lot of people that think it's easier than what it is too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which that's fine. Like, they can try it themselves and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. But yeah, I think for me, it's really just like, I don't know. My main focus is just like kind of keep exploring this thing and keep growing a little bit. But I think it is really fun to just kind of have like it's like a hobby within my content. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, it's new types of content. It's new things I can shoot. It's new things I can tell a story about. And just kind of like seeing how that kind of fits within.
Yeah, I feel like it's also like a new game too, in a sense of like learning on, like, you're not building like a person in a sense.
For sure,
you're building like your own entity. If that
makes sense. And it's just like, it's really cool. Like, also like, just opening up Instagram or TikTok and seeing someone like wear something, or like it's in the background or whatever, and like even like seeing some of you guys yesterday, or even people I hadn't met wearing stuff, or I hadn't met before wearing lab culture stuff. And then I'm like, oh shit, like, it's really cool to see that stuff in person, and like just the fulfillment from it is very cool. But yeah, it's like very new, but also it's cool. Like when I've met people now and stuff within the last few months, and like they compliment like lab culture, and it's kind of like takes me back to like when, you meet someone and they're like, oh man, like I love your videos, like that's a really cool, fulfilling thing. Yeah. But then it's like, oh, this like new side project, side hustle I'm building now. Like, I might shake someone's hand there, but man, like stuff you're doing with lab culture is so dope. And it's just like, that's even like a different type of fulfillment, because it's like, oh shit, like, okay. Like, like obviously like, the four of us in this room, like we're friends, but I didn't ask any of you guys to wear lab culture stuff. Like, you don't have to do that. You guys didn't have to buy anything either, and so the fact that people are, and it's something they're getting behind, is like a very surreal feeling. So for me, I'm always gonna buy when it comes to friend stuff, but also just brands I like. I'll do that over for sure
anything that like is more, I would say, corporate, esque. As far as the future of lab culture and the future of JHawk in general, what is like something, whether you're looking forward to or just like plans that you can share moving forward?
I don't know. I think for me, like from a content standpoint, this year I really want to try to kind of like level up things. So I think that might be working with an editor full time, or some people to help me shoot some content within Chicago, I think is a big goal of mine, just to kind of expand what I'm doing. And then also on the lab culture front, like I think, it hasn't even been a year yet of products. And so I have some really cool ideas of stuff I want to do and things I'm like testing and figuring out. But, apparel I think is always going to be a piece of it, just because I think that's a great way to market it, but also just I like creating things and wearing them. But I want to dive more into things not just apparel related. And so that should be in the next month or two. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun. But I think similar to myself, I think of myself kind of in the tech and lifestyle world.
Yeah.
And I try to not lean more on the lifestyle world now, but I think just like within the tech space, there's a lot of cool people. There's a lot of like dope products and all this stuff, but there's a lot of like very goofy looking things. And so I'm trying to kind of bring like my style and taste to this market. So I think there's a whole untapped world that I think within the next year you'll see me explore a little bit more. So yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that because I know obviously building something, you're a creative extension per se,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, I'm like, because your stuff is already to me like super polished, super
Thanks,
well
dude.
done, and I'm like, you say leveling up, I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you gonna do,
Dude? Yeah,
Like-
I mean, I just have ridiculously high standards for myself, and I think that's as much good as it is bad, but I think it makes me psycho enough that I'll stay up all night to finish an idea just because I feel like I have to. So yeah, I think this next year will be really big for me. I feel like I'm just starting to kind of get my level of traction from being full time, just to kind of like settle into that and figure out what the future is going to look like. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun next year, I think.
I know obviously we're here for Loot Fest and whatnot. What other events, in a sense, obviously I have TwitchCon probably gonna be a thing.
Sure.
Like what other events are you looking forward to this year that's not necessarily like brand deal or something along those lines that you're like excited for?
Yeah, I don't know. As of right now, I don't think I really have any other specific things planned. Luckily, in a few of the years past, like I've been invited to some different Sony events and stuff. So if that happens, I'd be more than stoked to do. But yeah, I think, as far as events go, I think it's more just like kind of what pops up and what makes sense. But for some of these like events like Loot Fest and TwitchCon stuff, to me, it's more of like kind of just like an excuse to get some of the guys together. And it's almost just kind of like, I think we all feel refreshed about content and you get like a new kind of drive to try new things and work on stuff.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I know we're about to go grab food right now, so thank God, because I'm starving.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, dude, thanks for coming on. Thank you for
dude.
being a part.
Of course, dude.